U.S. and its allies are imposing more sanctions, banning all new investment in Russia, increasing sanctions on major Russian financial institutions, and targeting Russian government officials and their family members, including Putin's own two daughters. Let's bring in ABC News Political Director Rick Klein for more. Rick, we're expecting to hear more about these sanctions from President Biden today. So what impact do you think they could have?
Well, I just talked earlier this morning at a news conference with a top economic advisor to President Biden, and the idea is to squeeze as many different sectors of the economy as possible in ways that are very personal when it comes to Putin's inner circle and even his family members, and very broad when it comes to taking these steps against some of the largest financial institutions inside of Russia. The idea that they won't be able to conduct transactions on the international market, the predictions from the administration is this is going to put a major pressure on the Russian economy, a further cratering of the ruble and of all of industry in Russia. And ultimately, the hope on the American side is that it puts more pressure on Putin to reconsider this strategy, because it hurts his people, both in the very broad sense as well as the very local sense and the personal sense. And this move to stop any U.S. individual from any further investments in Russia, again, just choking off any financial lifeline that the American government can find.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, the Department of Justice also announced new actions indicting a Russian oligarch, seizing a super yacht owned by another, and shutting down a dark web marketplace used to get around sanctions. How impactful are those moves?
Look, it's an open question, because we've heard from the White House the initial hope that the sanctions that were imposed would stop the invasion. Of course, that didn't happen. President Biden saying after the fact they weren't really about deterring. But still now we're in a position where every time we ratchet this up, it puts a little more pressure on the White House to actually deliver something out of these things. And it has an impact here back home. Markets are a little bit rattled again by the idea that the U.S. government's going to go after more Russian institutions, because we live in this international economic world where all of the things that happen there are impacting us as well. I don't think anyone at the White House is selling this here as the panacea, but their hope and their expectation is that this is going to really cripple Putin. And I think it's a bit of a black box about whether that puts pressure on him on a personal level, but no one likes to get their fun toys taken away. And that I think is the hope, that the oligarchs suffering means Putin is going to feel it.
Now, the U.S. is also sending another $100 million worth of anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. How significant is that?
Look, I think any time that there's more military aid, the Ukrainians are going to welcome it. But the pace at which that they're using these weapons far outstrips the supply that's coming in. And if indeed we're talking about a very long, slow military advance / attempted occupation, there really isn't. This is not going to be, I think, seen as an amount that is equivalent with the need on the Ukrainian side. And of course, we know President Zelensky has still called for more. He still does want to see a no-fly zone that has been ruled out continually by the American side.
And the White House also announced that it'll extend the pause on federal student loan payments until August. The administration has been under pressure by some to forgive those loans entirely. Is this a step in that direction?
Potentially. I think the hope among some progressive groups is that it is that, although this is not something that President Biden has said he wants. This is an area, frankly, where the administration caved to some liberal pressure that was mounted as the newest deadline comes up. And it's a little bit at odds with the contention from the administration that the economy is booming and that the COVID-19 restrictions and different steps that were put in place because of COVID-19 are no longer necessary. So it kind of cuts in a different direction. But there's no question that there's a lot of cheering right now among people who have student loans themselves or see this as a core issue. It was such an animating issue early in the pre-pandemic days of the 2020 primary, where frankly Joe Biden was an outlier among some of his rivals in not wanting student loans to be forgiven at the federal level altogether.
And oil executives are testifying on Capitol Hill today about skyrocketing gas prices. President Biden has blamed energy companies for profiting off what he calls Putin's price hike. So is that fair? How are these companies defending their practices, and how contentious is this issue?
Well, Democrats are looking for a new villain in the gas price wars. They recognize that it's a political liability, to say the least. People don't blame Putin entirely. They give him some blame for this, but gas prices were rising before the war in Ukraine. And the global supply issues that those oil executives are talking about right now predate this war by a good margin. Their point is they don't set the prices at gas pumps. The world market and then very individual competitive pressures of supply and demand do. Yes, they're beginning to increase production, but the same supply chain chain and labor shortages that are plaguing other portions of the economy hurt them as well. And frankly, the decisions that they made a couple of years ago when the price of oil was low about what production levels to set are still being felt right now, because it takes a while. You can't just start drilling and producing tomorrow just because you have a lease. So they say they're taking those steps, but it is going to take some time. They're pleading for patience. At the same time, they are making record profits as a result of this globally high price of oil.
All right, ABC News Political Director Rick Klein, we appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.